You too, Varghese. The legacy of Oommen Chandy, the former Kerala Chief Minister, what a major loss to Indian politics. It certainly is poorer without a ground leader, a stalwart like Oommen Chandy. We're going to talk about him, about anecdotes, about his
the way he actually carried out
the legacy that he has left. Certainly. Today we're going to remember a warm, down-to-earth neta. The stories of Oommen Chandy's, humility, how generous he was, how easily approachable he was, even to the people who he met for a brief period of just, a small time over the years. All those anecdotes and stories are certainly legendary. The Kerala government on Wednesday declared a 2-day state mourning following the death of former Kerala Chief Minister and Congress stalwart Oommen Chandy. The 79-year-old Congress leader died in a hospital in Bengaluru, and later the news was announced by his son, Chandy Oomen, in a Facebook post which said, "Appa has passed away." Chandy, who served as the Chief Minister of Kerala twice, breathed his last in a private hospital, Varghese, in Bengaluru at about 4:30 a.m. His end came while undergoing a treatment for cancer, according to sources. Now, later his mortal remains were brought to Thiruvananthapuram from Bengaluru in a special aircraft yesterday afternoon. This very morning, the mortal remains of Chandy was taken to Kottayam, the stronghold of the Congress stalwart. During his decades of long political career, Varghese, he's, you know it better than I do, he has spent a major chunk of his life in the state capital as a legislator. He was leader of the Congress party and a chief minister, that too twice in the state of Kerala. Now, mourners gathered at Puthupally House and the state secretariat's Darbar Hall to pay homage to Chandy, who served as a Puthupally Assembly constituency and represented it for about 53 years. There's so much to talk about, about Oommen Chandy, even as we see this entire parade that is being carried out in respect of, now the leader who is no more with us at 79 years of age. Oommen Chandy passed away due to prolonged illness, fighting his battle with cancer. Let's listen into some stakeholders here, some political voices, and we'll come back for more, Varghese.
He represented the spirit of Kerala and the spirit of India. He was a true leader of the people of Kerala, and we will all miss him. We loved him very much, and we will remember him fondly. My condolences to his family and everybody who loved and cared for him.
It is great loss to our country, and particularly to the state of Kerala. A great leader, and he served in Congress party long, and he was a good administrator, good chief minister, good organizer, and very honest our party leader. Today we lost him. I am very sad, and in condolences I can say there's such a great loss to our party, and also the bereaved family is also very in a bad situation. God should give strength to them to bear this loss, and I hope they will come from that this grief, and we all hope that better days for their family.
Today we've lost a great son of the soil of Kerala, but a great servant of the people, somebody who stood with the masses, somebody who was always surrounded by people. The public could access him at any time of the day or night. He was always willing to attend to their concerns and to serve them. He has left his mark behind in a number of extraordinary, successful infrastructure and development activities. And I must say that for me, what Oommen Chandy represented was so unusual, so rare, that it will be very difficult for any public leader or representative to come close to his commitment, his dedication, his willingness to serve the people and the states that he so dearly loved. One mustn't forget that he won the United Nations Public Service Award in 2013 for his extraordinary Jana Samparkam program, where he actually went out and stood in the headquarters of all 14 districts, receiving petitions from people directly and often rendering them justice on the spot, short-circuiting the bureaucratic procedures that so often hold up the public welfare. This tireless dedication to service marked him out as the most extraordinary public leader we have been blessed to have, and I mourn his passing today with his family. I had been to Bangalore a couple of months ago to see him. I was already afraid that he was beginning to fade, and today that the final moments have come, I reach out to his family and all those who love him throughout the state in memory and tribute to a giant and also a precious son of the soil who has left us.
Well, joining us on the broadcast, Varghese, is also George Kalivailil, senior journalist. Very warm welcome to you, Mr. Kalivailil. First and foremost, George, I'm going to take this question to you. You must have met the man, the son of soil that everybody is talking about as well. What's the first thing that strikes your mind? I mean, of course, we'll talk about his humility, his approach, how he was so easily approachable and what all he's done for Kerala politics. But right at the forefront, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it an anecdote? Is it something that he said, a particular way that he probably touched your heart?
Definitely, Oommen Chandy is a man of, people. He's one of the legendary leaders of Kerala. Maybe he is more accessible to all. Whoever comes to him at any time, whether he was traveling, whether he's in Delhi, whether he's in Tiruvandavapuram or he's in Kottayam, his Puthupally house, or anywhere. Anybody can go and meet him, irrespective of his position in the society or the religion. He helps anybody. He is ready to help. That helping people like anybody. Nobody can match him. I am sure that he was so extraordinary a politician. That makes him an MLA for 53 years continuously from the same constituency, his own constituency in Puthupally in Kerala. He won all those elections. I think only K.M. Mani can come near. He completed 50 years and all from Pala. Then K. Karunanidhi from Tamil Nadu may have a little more of MLA-ship. That just shows him. Regarding his lifestyle, he was so simple and humble, not just in deeds or in words. We can see it from all of his. I have a long close association with Sri Oommen Chandy. Because
what was your last visit like, Mr. Kalivailil? What was your last visit with the former chief minister like?
Yeah, last visit was in Delhi when he came for the ICC working committee meeting. After the COVID, he came even between his cancer and treatments.
Right.
He came for a day and stayed in the Kerala house for a day along with his son. That day he was saying, he was very hopeful. He said, "Nothing to worry. I will move on. I will move on. I think I will overcome this also." That was his confidence because he was living along with the people.
Speaks volumes about the kind of persona that Oommen Chandy was. A genuine democratic leader who never essentially tired of speaking to the people. Varghese with me here in the studio. Varghese, what do you think? I mean, I was way too young when Oommen Chandy propped up onto the scene. I was very young when he was at his prime in his political career. But I do know a little bit of the man. Now, Oommen Chandy and A.K. Anthony, I mean, this duo and what it means for Kerala Congress. Would you like to throw some light on that? How important was Oommen Chandy for the Congress in the state of Kerala?
Well, we always talk about in-party democracy within Congress, and A.K. Anthony and Oommen Chandy are credited for breaking a feudal structure within the Congress that was in fact headed once upon a time by another strongman and a person who's left a Congress legacy, that is Mr. Karnakaran, who later went out of the party also. I think George Kaliwal will know much better about it. When I speak about it, they were the young Turks from within the ranks who were able to break that stranglehold and let in more newer leaders come in. And what people used to in those days complain about, how certain people were getting posts. They were able to break through that lobby group, and Oommen Chandy stood behind A.K. Anthony when A.K. Anthony took the leadership mantle of that group and went ahead and ensured that the so-called, coterie that was there within the Karnakaran government was in fact broken, and even to the point where Karnakaran had to put his resignation. So he had brought in a new kind of leadership, or he rather stood with A.K. Anthony to bring in more leadership changes within the Congress as well. But when it comes to Oommen Chandy, the biggest factor is he was a crowd puller. He was a person who feared being alone. He was a person who used to, he never understood things other than being within a crowd. Now, here's a chief minister. When he was a chief minister from 2011 on, he had a brief stint from 2004 to 2006, but then from 2011 he had a 5-year term. So he had these mass contact programs with the people, and in those mass contact programs, it is being said that the police personnel, the bureaucracy of that local area, all of them used to stay beyond, midnight, and even probably till early morning the next day. They would have started somewhere in the morning of the previous day, but they used to stay till then, because this man had such energy with him that he used to be with the people and used to take every single piece of application with him. He would in fact give them the assurance that if it can be solved at that point, he would solve it at that point, or later he would give that assurance. And it's not like politicians taking that piece of paper and giving it to their PA and then forgetting about it. Here was a man who followed up with all these papers. In fact, the last meeting that he had officially was with Muralidharan, who had come to visit him, and the thing he was speaking, he told Muralidharan immediately about Nimisha Priya, who was on the facing the death throes in Yemen over the killing of a person over there. So he said, what has happened on that front? Now, here's a man who is frail, but at the same time undergoing treatment, and he was immediately talking about people, the issues of the people. So this is the kind of level at which Oommen Chandy was.
That's how much he wanted to serve the people.
Yeah, that is how much he wanted to serve the people. And you have his wife always complaining, about it, and she made a biblical allegory in the sense that she spoke about how Jacob, the biblical patriarch, was in love with Rachel, who is his loved wife, but had to settle for Leah, and she was the plain-eyed person who came, and and Leah became the secondary person. So she said that the people were his first choice. So the portion of which Rachel was, that is to say that the love Jacob had for Rachel was for the people of his constituency and the people of Kerala, and then his wife came second. So this is the allegory that she had given. And interestingly enough, also she spoke about how a love letter was given to her, and it was only 2 lines. It said that I'm going to face elections, please pray for me. These are the 2 lines. So this is the man you're talking about. This is the man you're talking about.
A man who had his priorities set straight, and his fundamental priority was
a crowd puller. He was within the crowd, and today when we see this funeral procession going, it's been 3 hours. They could cover only 10 kilometers because that is the
kind of crowd that has come out to just catch a glimpse of the leader who's no more with us. Mr. Kaliwal, a genuine Democrat, somebody who never got tired of speaking to people, only goes on to show, and Varghese here is, telling us that, he was somebody who was scared of being alone, which only goes on to show that he was so approachable. And, there must not have been any kind of problems in approaching your MLA. A record 53 years from his own constituency. What are some factors and some things that today's politicians can learn from somebody like Oommen Chandy about being accessible? Today, you ask anybody, they say that people come and ask for votes, but then the MLAs and the politicians are missing.
I fully agree with what Vagi said. I will continue with one more that makes he was a chief minister and he was traveling through Calicut. Then one small young girl called him by name Oommen Chandy. Then he stopped and called her near. She said, we don't have a house. And he immediately took initiative and that house was built and given to her. This is one thing. I can see I remember another thing. He was in Delhi Kerala House as chief minister. And then one lady in a wheelchair came there and she cannot climb the Kerala House steps, And that time somebody called an Oommen Chandy and told him that one girl is looking for you. She can't come up. Okay, he was talking to many of him in the suit room, in the chief minister's suit room, but suddenly he stopped everything and he said, I will come back. And we also went together with him. And immediately he asked her, what do you need? What is the problem? She needs some treatment in the AIMS, All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi. And suddenly he asked the secretary to call the director of the AIMS, and he immediately arranged another 3 of Malayalis, including a nurse, to follow it up daily and give whatever possible help. And this is Oommen Chandy. Nobody, I can see he was a textbook for all budding journalists, budding politicians. Because how can you live with people? How can you help people? And even though he was full time with the people, he was a good administrator. He always worked for the development of Kerala, Cochin Metro, the Vizhinjam port, the Calicut airport, the Kannur airport. All are his contributions. So many. And that is what he means. Working with the people.
This textbook for budding politicians that you're talking about, Mr. Kalivalil, this textbook that you're talking about for budding, politicians, I mean, today it seems like it's completely missing the kind of warmth with which Oommen Chandy would approach situations like this. What is it that we can learn from Oommen Chandy? Let me rephrase. What is it that today's politicians can pick up from how Oommen Chandy carried himself?
That's the best question, I think. Just check with Oommen Chandy. He became an MLA at the age of 27. Then he continued. He became 4-time minister. He became 2-time chief minister. He became a working committee member, AICC general secretary, and so much. He was a chairman of the UDF in Kerala. Even after becoming all these, he was a true, simple party worker for a party. He loved and he know each and every booth level worker of the Congress party, and he know each and every person who met him. He tried to help them, and the way he met with people, even though he climbed, he was a very, very Chanakya in politics also. He was one who even Karunakaran could not tackle with him. And Antony, the entire Antony group, AK Antony group, the faction in the Congress, there were huge factional politics in Kerala between Karunakaran and Antony. But the entire A group was run by Mr. Oommen Chandy. And the trust in which Oommen Chandy had in Antony and Antony had in Oommen Chandy was enormous. That's why Antony cried in open. He couldn't control his emotions yesterday. And I know the
he was absolutely distraught. We were looking at that reaction from AK Anthony. He was absolutely distraught. But Varghese, away from these anecdotes of humility, of generosity, of warmth, of true service to the people that have actually elected a politician, some notable economic policies that you could point out, some challenges that came his way, some controversies.
See, he was a person, one thing that he wanted to always ensure is that the infrastructure of the state was up to the mark. That's why when Kalival was talking about how the port projects or the airport projects, so he wanted to ensure that connectivity, because one thing that Oommen Chandy also as a leader understood is that Kerala's population is a population that is need to be in total connectivity with the state and to the rest of the places because of the fact that you have large diasporas of this population. So Oommen Chandy always concentrated on these diasporas, their ability to come to Kerala, invest back in Kerala. He also in fact tried to push into the fact that this connectivity should be seamless. So that's why he was a champion for a lot of infrastructure projects, and those are some of his legacies that he in fact leaves. So he believed in connectivity as fast as far reach as possible. Then you were talking about what politicians should learn. Kabir, in an era where you see most of the politicians only during, a 5-year term, after the 5-year next election cycle, you see them. Then you go through
What 5 years?
periods.
It's now come down to 2 weeks before the polling
and
day.
then you have these, how social media is used to actually have. But here is a man in a generation that did not have social media, was actually able to understand who is from his constituency, kept, remembered them from his constituency, and ensured that he followed up with their issues in their constituency. And he had a personal connect. It was not that you had Oommen Chandy in front of you. That was what the connect was all about. It was not a social media connect saying that a tweet meant for everyone, a small message meant for a certain select group, or address meant for everyone. It didn't work. In an era of technology, it did not work. That is why he probably could be, and I think George also would agree with me, that one of the last crowd pullers of Kerala. Because we have a generation of politicians that is only crowd pulling on the social media side. Here is a man who could physically pull crowds. Here was a man who would actually be with the crowds. So that kind of a connect factor, that is not social media driven, that is not, your personal assistant driven, that connect factor is actually missing in a lot of politicians. And probably, he comes from that era of politicians from Vajpayee onwards, or from Indira Gandhi onwards, who went through with the masses, who walked with the masses, and who had that connect with the masses. Some of the last leaders who actually carried this with them, rather than, being on the social media factor as well. But then he did use social media because he used to stream his entire office 24/7 live as well, to avoid any sort of corruption allegation that could come his way. That of course had a different take on the story as well, but here was a man who would always be in the crowd. So he is one of those last, I think, George, do you think that he's one of those last people that we would in fact see probably having that, personal connect with his constituency? Because, in an era of social media, people just like to tweet, put out something, a Facebook post, one video here, one video there. But here, Oommen Chandy, if he used to go to a constituency, there used to always be a crowd around him. There was always those last magnetic personalities, and probably underreported when it comes to national politics as well.
Verghese, exactly, absolutely true. Without marketing techniques, without a marketing team, without a social media backup, and without even party backup, he built the party, not the party built him. The way Oommen Chandy, Anthony, Karunakaran, E.K. Nayanar were those kind of people. B.S. Achuthanandan, they lived with people in Kerala. And as national leaders like Vajpayee or Indira Gandhi or somebody, how they connected with the people. The connect with the people is so important that they know each and everybody thought that, not just thought, everybody felt that Oommen Chandy is so near to me, he is available for me for anything and everything. As a journalist who covered him for 33 years, continuously with him. Almost continuously, because whenever he even many times he asked me to come and sit with him, and we discussed everything. Even he showed me the notes just before the election committee meeting for the candidates, and he said, and I made a suggestion. He said, I don't think it will happen, but I will take your suggestion. But it happened. That kind of connect was. I was never with Congress, or I was actively opposing Congress during my college days, but the connect with Oommen Chandy, maybe Anthony is the only person who made that right now, the living person. Nobody else. The connect. What I was telling earlier, that those youngsters who once became an MLA thinks that he is a leader, and he is away from masses. Mass should come to him, and that is the biggest difference between Oommen Chandy and the present day leaders.
Well, certainly.
He thought that he is so simple. He is the people's man. He has to go to the people. He is here to help the people, not to harass the people.
And also George, the political lineage and legacy that he has now left behind. Tell us a little bit about that also. How are people going to view this? The youngsters in Kerala, what kind of impact did Oommen Chandy have on today's 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds?
I'm sure he made a void in the Kerala politics, in the Indian politics, or the kind of politicians in India. The last few who was with the people, who helped the people, who was always the NRIs in India, especially the NRKs and the non-resident Keralites across from US and Gulf, they had more connection with him. He helped them in every need, as one Nimisha Priya's case was mentioned here by Vagis. His legacy in Congress in Kerala and the politics in Kerala, I'm sure he will be there as a light.
George, it's so weird that the news broke out yesterday in the wee hours. It was about 4:30 a.m. and the joint opposition conclave was also taking place yesterday. Of course, certainly the entire political, realm is poorer without somebody like Oommen Chandy. Let's not even begin what the Congress might be feeling right now and the dent it has made. But the silver lining here was that yesterday at the joint opposition conclave that was hosted by Congress in Karnataka, the mortal remains of Oommen Chandy were in Bengaluru. The emotional quotient was so high. Everybody was emotionally charged and everybody was on the same page. Right, Varghese?
They were, and in fact, he's been pursuing his treatment in Bengaluru. Some of his doctors were also in Bengaluru. That's why he was in Bengaluru. But Oommen Chandy, to be very honest with them, I would like to pull out two incidents. One is when the CPM workers, there was this huge scam that had happened during this thing. One of his constituents was involved in that scam, and that resulted in a lot of blockade of his car and things like that. And there was a CPM worker who had hurled a stone against him, and he was hurt in that. There was an attack by the CPM workers that apparently happened, and there were questions being raised: is the chief minister not safe? Now, that person who hurled that stone quit from the party that he belonged to, hurled that stone, and later went and asked for his forgiveness, and they had a talk with each other, and Oommen Chandy, being Oommen Chandy, just forgave him. Now, this is the kind of man I'm talking about. That is one incident that I would have. The other incident that
today politicians would have definitely tried to make an example of somebody like him.
Yeah. And another thing thing about Oommen Chandy is he was a very deeply spiritual person as well. He is very much tied with his St. George Orthodox Syrian Church in Puthupally.
You could see the same in Bengaluru. That particular
in Bengaluru also, you saw a lot of people coming in. So he's very spiritually tied as well. But that did not stop him as a politician. He used to rely on his spiritual strength. At the same time, he used to in fact be above his religion, above his ethnicity. And there was a time at which where he had what I would say George also would know about. The church case was going on, and in the church case he belonged to one faction and there was the other faction, and he was a chief minister at that time, and he had to act as a chief minister. At the same time, he was also belonging to a church that is he was an Orthodox,
so the Orthodox faction, his own faction,
and he had the Orthodox faction, and then he had to take a decision for the Jacobite faction, and he was in between this. And at that time also, the way he navigated through it, of course, there were people who would say that it was a difficult proposition, but he did navigate through that very difficult situation. Even now, communist leader such as Pinarayi Vijayan finds very difficult to solve that issue even now, because it's a 100-year-old case that's been going on. So Oommen Chandy, being part of one faction, had to actually deliver justice, and it was very difficult to navigate between the Jacobite and the Orthodox factions at the same time. I think George would be able to.
George, would you like to weigh in on this particular matter? Yeah. How Oommen Chandy traversed through this very smartly?
Regarding this church issue, he could say, because he was confident to both factions. In fact. No, everybody, even the Catholics or the other churches or the Hindus or the Nayars or the Muslims, everybody liked it. That point is very important. Those who are really spiritual, especially Karunakaran, Sri Oommen Chandy, Sri K.M. Mani, they were really spiritual, but they were very secular also. How can you be really spiritual and to be secular.
No,
That's a model
that's
for
one
all
quality
politicians
that is very there. Is even it was there with Karnakaran also. I agree with George on that.
So being
That
spiritual
and
but secular
very
at the
secular.
same time.
You know, you can be spiritual at the same time, very secular. One quality that is very lacking right now, because everyone tries to wear the spirituality on their sleeves and the religion on their sleeves in era
The
like
biblical
this.
learning of live and let live.
That is it. I mean, let's not stop, George. Sorry,
George, sorry for
to
interrupting.
interrupt.
No. You said it. That's the biggest thing I have seen in Kerala politics. That kind of politicians we are losing. We don't have that. They are the last people. We need more of such politicians in India. Though no, you can be spiritual. You don't believe it. You can believe in or whatever you like. But whatever way you live, you have to respect and love all others as Indians and brothers. That's the most important. That is what Sri Oommen Chandy showed to all of us. No, I was a Catholic, but he was more close to me than many of the Orthodox people. And whenever I went to him and told anything, he immediately done it. I have an incident in 1994 when he was finance minister. My company wanted something immediately done on that day. When I met him, he did it in a minute. Because the way he connected with all factions of Christian churches, all factions of Muslims, all factions of Hindus. But the way he lived with them, he was most trusted by even the Nayars. The NSS General Secretary will openly say that. The Muslim League leaders will openly say that. The Catholic Church leaders will openly say that. Though he don't belong to them. He belongs to the Orthodox Church. That's the way we should. He made a model for all politicians, all public workers, all even the spiritual leaders. How to deal with others, how to respect others, how to love others, how to serve others.
No,
certainly,
just to add to that, in an era of identity politics, how do you transcend your own identity? Because your own identity becomes a challenge at certain points. Oommen Chandy, Karnakaran, A.K. Antony, and even, of course, the communist leaders don't have a religious identity, but to an extent that, how you go beyond your identities. And these are people who have actually shown that you can go transcend your own identity challenge. And you don't need to be,
Today it
rallying
seems like
behind
that
identity
is a skill
challenge.
that people just don't
It doesn't
have
exist
anymore.
right now.
We're looking at, the family is certainly grieving right now. It's in a distraught condition. You can look at those faces, of course. And Oommen Chandy's son, Chandy Oommen, he took to the Facebook post and he said that Appa is no more. Appa has passed away. What's next for somebody like Chandy Oommen? I mean, we always talk about, the legacy that a father leaves behind, the lineage that a father leaves behind. They say you die for the first time and you die again when people stop remembering you.
You see, if you look at a lot of sons of politicians, you would see that most of them do get a backup from their father. Chandy Oommen never. I mean, I think he still complains about it because he was told that, boss, if you wanted to do it yourself,
got to do it on your own.
So he, was. If you look at him, if you look at his political career, which could have skyrocketed because Oommen Chandy was a chief minister, was a convener of the UDF and a tall AICC secretary. He could have just skyrocketed, but that did not happen. Chandy Oommen was made to stand from the sidelines of the party. He was supposed to work like a normal karyakarta, if you use the word, party worker. So you had to he had to go from the side. Chandy Oommen used to come to my church in Bengaluru, so I've spoken to him. There he was pursuing his law degree over there at that time. So in the brief talk, what I understood is that poor man had to work his own way out. He was not in fact given that.
Let's ask George. George, what's your take on that? Varghese has met Chandy Oommen at his church in Bengaluru, and he had to work to get to where he is today. There was no nepotism that people talk about all day long, about parivarvad, dynasty politics. Oommen Chandy was somebody who made sure that his son had some sort of substance.
Chandy and Antony, both never showed a nepotism for their sons. That's why Antony's son left Congress and joined BJP. Now, I don't think Chandy Oommen will go on that way. Chandy Oommen definitely will walk, and he may be the next candidate in Puthupally. He may be. And there are opposition to that also. In Congress in Kerala, you know, that kind of opposition is normal. It can happen because Chandy Oommen can never replace his father. And Chandy Oommen, he's very close to me also. Regarding his father's, like his father, he also used to go to the Orthodox church. He used to come to the Catholic church. He used to come to my home for lunch. And he was close to all of us. Why? Even then, the opposition to him as in politics, that will happen like Karunakaran's son came, Mr. Muralidharan, when he joined politics, the same thing happened. In Kerala, you know, people somehow, initially they will oppose them, later on they will accept them.
I agree with that, because Anup Jacob is
cases.
one person, like Team Jacob's son. Anup Jacob is one person who went through the same, you know, kind of a trajectory. Initially, there was a lot of opposition about him, you know, taking on his father's mantle. Though Team Jacob had his own party, Kerala Congress Jacob faction, but he had taken up that mantle, and later he was accepted. Anup Jacob is a Congress MLA now and is accepted to be in the shoes of his father. So it takes time, but then the big legacy that Oommen Chandy leaves is huge. I mean, it'll take Chandy Oommen quite a lot to actually fill in those shoes, because it is a very huge legacy. As I said, the mass connect part of it. In fact, there are a lot of interesting anecdotes. You know, Mohanlal once asked him, like, have you seen my film? And he said, I've seen only one of yours, and which was the first movie in which he acted. You know, here is a man who did not have the time to, you know, or this thing to actually go and spare for this thing. And Mohanlal was like, how do I explain to a person who I'm a huge star and he's seen one of my first films, and here and there glimpses of his movies he's watched. So that is the kind of a person he is. So,
you know, George, you must have been in touch with the family as well. How is the family holding up right now? I'm sure they're distraught, but how are they holding up?
Yeah, the families, you know, they was preparing for this. You know, last few months he was in real. They know that he's singing, and the prayers were going on. They tried all the ways, because though there are some people alleged that, you know, the family was opposing him for medical treatment, but that was not correct. His son, his own wife, Mariamma, they told me that, you know, they tried all the way. You know, they took medicines from Germany. They took all wise advices, and there was confusion in the reports. Cancer, because he has got cancer, and there was the initial report, the secondary report. It came after the second biopsy report was different. That way it created some issues. Now they know that the Oommen Chandy was singing, and I think in few days they will be normal. But that is not the issue. There are other issues in some feuds between the sister and brother, like what Karunakaran's son and daughter had later on. But they solved it. I am sure this family also will solve it. But Congress as a party and the leadership in Kerala will definitely, feel very, very, very sad, and they can't.
Certainly, I mean, the entire political realm is poorer without Oommen Chandy. And a final question to both of you, Varghese and Mr. Kadivalil. What next for Congress in Kerala? The road ahead for the Congress party in Kerala. We know Shashi Tharoor only recently, he contested the AICC presidential elections, and what Shashi Tharoor means for Kerala Congress politics. What next? What's the road ahead looking like, sir? George, you may go ahead first.
Yeah. I think the Congress will have a very difficult period right now. Though the image of the CPM-led LDF government in Kerala is very bad, because majority of the Pinarayi Vijayan government's decisions are seem to be anti-people, or people are opposing to that generally, and dissatisfied with the government right now. But the Congress in Kerala, the leadership, especially Sri V.D. Satheeshan and Sri K. Sudhakaran, the opposition leader and the KPCC president, they are not acceptable to most of the Congress people, and they cannot replace like a leader like Anthony Karunakaran or Oommen Chandy. Even the UDF is very weak now. That's an issue that is facing right now the next elections. Otherwise, last elections, out of 2019 were with the UDF, and only one went to the LDF. Now the next election result will not be the same. It will be very difficult for Congress to, keep at least 15 among 19. No, that will be the difficult task.
That's going to be the next challenge. I mean, the cherry on the top would certainly have been Oommen Chandy, putting everything in place before he finally, went for his final rest. But Varghese, your take on the road ahead?
I have a little bit of
Congress.
different reading when it comes to the Congress in this thing. I'm seeing a generational shift with V.D. Sudhishan and Sudhakaran being in charge, but the same old factionalism issues could in fact take up. But the demise of these two, the demise of leaders like Oommen Chandy would certainly leave that void, but also certainly leave that opportunity to probably end one of the longest running factional feud in Kerala Congress. That is the I and A group factionalism that has dominated it, and probably come under Sudhishan and Sudhakaran, and that's possibility is there. But then again, if the momentum goes well during the 2024 elections, of course, I think the Congress would rebuild itself with a new set of leaders. You have very new faces, they are opportunities, but then I hope they are able to actually do what an Oommen Chandy or an A.K. Antony was able to do during the 1990s.
Well, certainly. Needless to say, I'm repeating this again, our political realm is poorer without Oommen Chandy. I'm so glad we've used a picture where he's smiling and laughing, and I hope that he's smiling somewhere up there. And may his soul rest in peace, and our thoughts and prayers with those, that are grieving his particular demise. Mr. George Kalivalil, many thanks for joining with us, sir, and helping us out with those anecdotes. The information that you have on the man is, of course, very precious and priceless. Varghese, your inputs also. You've met Chandy Oommen. Nice to, give the viewers the right kind of information so that they understand who Oommen Chandy was, what he meant for not just Kerala politics, but like Mr. George, said, the right textbook for all these budding politicians now entering the fray. How do you become a better politician? How do you become the right kind of politician? Well, you need only look at what Oommen Chandy has done in the longest time. 53 years. Record time of serving his own constituency, two-time Kerala Chief Minister, so much that he's done for the Congress party in Kerala and Kerala politics as well. Well, that's all the time we have for you. Many thanks, Varghese. Many thanks, George. See you again. Lots more happening on News9. Don't go anywhere.
BrahMos. Stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China's navy has threatened its neighbors, and they are turning to the BrahMos for protection. The Warship Killer. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Pakistan is actually genociding Baloch people. So being Baloch is a crime. If you are a Baloch, it means in the eyes of Pakistan, you don't have any right to live.
The Chinese and Pakistanis are colonizing the Baloch and exploiting their resources.
The Baloch armed struggle will continue unless China withdraws, Pakistan military withdraws from Balochistan, and give Baloch complete authority to decide for themselves.
The Baloch feel that if they don't act now, they will become marginalized.
What lies ahead for Balochistan?
Balochistan, Bangladesh 2.0, streaming now.
Pakistan is actually genociding Baloch people.
The Pakistanis were exploiting them. Not just Pakistan, now the Chinese have also gotten because of Gwada.
Baloch feel that now they're becoming a colony of a colony.